Christian Steward, thank you for being here today. So can you tell me a little bit about your position within the MLK Holiday Commission?
So this year, 2018 Marade, I am the commander. And I say 2018 because our fearless leader, Dr. Vern Howard, had a brain trauma. And so he's just not able to participate in the capacity that he normally does. And so he kind of promoted me to be the interim commander of this Marade year, or this year's Marade.
And can you explain a little bit about what the Marade is and what you do?
So the Marade is actually a combination of words, which is march, which is to demonstrate, and to parade, which is to celebrate. So Wilma Webb in 1986 coined the phrase, and we've been using it since. We're the only event of our kind across the country. Now what we do is we assemble at City Park, which is here in Denver, and we'll have a run a show which includes speakers, poets, dancers, singers, and we celebrate. And then after that we march. 5K is what we've measured it to be. So we march from City Park to Civic Center Park. And then at Civic Center Park, what we do is community service projects. And what that entails is organizations coming together to serve our people, the people who come. We have an opportunity to have 60 to 80,000 people come to this event. And it's important that our mission is to serve people. And so the service projects allow us to make available baby items, diapers, hygiene products, things, blouses and pants for interview purposes. We have water donations and food collection sites. And again, this is our way of giving back to the people who came to celebrate, who may need. And so that is a sum up of the Marade.
And so this is a volunteer-based organization, so people are not paid. What keeps you coming back year after year, and then what do you think keeps others coming back?
Definitely the legacy of Dr. King Jr. So how I got involved in this committee 8 years ago. It's 2018, so 8 years ago I got involved in this committee, and I had a friend of mine. She said, hey, I would like to introduce you to someone. And that person at the time was Vern Howard. This is before he was Dr. Vern Howard, but so she used to come to my house, and I would be playing Dr. King's speeches all the time. And she thought I should be involved, and that I had the energy and the capacity to run with Dr. Vern Howard. Does anybody know him? They know that he is elusive and dynamic. And so the first year I got involved, I was just his shadow. And they said, hey, we want you just to follow Dr. Vern Howard. Vern Howard at the time. And they said, we're going to be honest with you. Nobody has ever been able to keep up with Vern. And I was that year. And just the energy of the crowd that year, and the responsibility that came with ushering people down this place safely, it captivated me. It made things important for me. And so it's the legacy of Dr. King that keeps me doing this. It's the strength of our community that keeps me coming. It's the team that we have. We have a phenomenal team. They keep me coming back as well. And so I believe we feed off from each other. I believe other people come because in the spirit of love, especially in the current atmosphere of our government and things that are going on. I think people show up to show support and unity, because this is when we need it the most. And I believe other committee members, volunteers, marshals, all participate for that reason. I think when you boil it down, it's justice that we seek, and we seek it with love, and this is our opportunity to do that.
When you think of Martin Luther King Jr., what comes to mind? What do you think of Martin Luther King Jr., like, of his legacy and stuff?
I've actually been thinking about this very deeply, and 2018's theme is sacrifice for justice. And to answer your question, I actually been thinking more about Coretta Scott King's sacrifice. And the sacrifice she made not having a husband home every day. The sacrifice that she made not having a father around their kids every day. And that was for the purpose of fighting injustice. And I think that Dr. King Jr. was given a lot of credit for the civil rights movement, but he was about human rights. And in that context, it involves all of us. And so, kind of just to tie it in, I know Dr. King Jr. sacrificed his life, but there were so many people who sacrificed so much because of his legacy as well. And so I think about all the people he united and still continues to ignite, 50 years later. It's incredible.
So we're coming up on Dr. King's 50th anniversary of his death. What points do you think that we need to focus on in order to continue his legacy and to continue learning from the lessons that he taught us with his life?
I think the point of getting us the rights to vote, the rights to assemble peacefully, was the inception of his movement, provided that there was injustice, right? And so, but towards the latter years of his life, he really focused on what he deemed and others deemed the Poor People Campaign. Now, this was a way of shifting civil rights into human rights, and what he wanted to focus on, a lot of it was poor people. The poor people, which encompass so many different nationalities, races, creeds, they seem to be disenfranchised. And I think that the fight is economics, really. When you are on the wrong side of economics, you are easily disenfranchised. You are easily displaced. You are easily provided with injustice. And I think that the point is to build us economically. Now, I think going forward, it's important for small organizations, minority organizations, to come together and fortify that purchasing power. This gives us the opportunity to buy land and provide jobs for people who may not be easily able to get those jobs. This gives us the opportunity to have resources, because it's not about, when I say economics, it's not about having stuff, but it's the resources. It's the clean water, the housing, the affordable housing. It's the access to, to have your voice heard politically. And I think there was 5 points of the Poor People Campaign, and I think really this is why Dr. King was truly assassinated, because his movement evolved to something so much more encompassing than just African Americans, and although people do see this organization as maybe an African American organization, again, we focused on human rights. And so one of the other things outside the economics is making sure that we give a safe space for people to speak, have dissenting opinions, and still work together, and to fight for injustice, because an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And so just highlighting some of the things that are going around the world and figuring out how do we unite to some of those causes as well. But we have to lay foundations, and I believe that starts with economics.
So what is a vision for the MLK Marade going forward? What would you like to see more of? What traditions would you like to keep? What do you think needs to change?
Going forward, I would like to see the Marade incorporate more service projects, and you can find that online at www.drmartinlkingJRCHC.org. Because we do have a guideline of service projects. Again, some of the areas that we've looked at, and empowering people. And so one of the things specifically I would like to do is start engaging the business district on Colfax, because this is, you know, this is the route that we take when we are marching, and to engage them in a way where they are, you know, participating, and not just, you know, with tables and flyers, but actually allowing economic exchanges with the Marade and the people who participate in the Marade. I would like us to start incorporating more student and teacher initiatives to actually engage people outside the holiday, where we have teachers and students collaborate and do projects, service projects as well. Going forward, what we will do is we'll have City Park be kind of the setup around political figures, and then the Civic Center being, you know, centered around community service, or I'm sorry, the community. That way we can tie both, because both are important. We need both sides as far as community and politics to, you know, come together. We can't go at it as if we're enemies. There will be lots of disagreements. I would also like to have more forums the day of the Marade, where we can help elder people with transportation access. We can have forums about racial inequality. We can have resume building forums. We can have also a job fair where people do come and they get empowered here. They just don't come to hear speeches, but they actually come here and leave better than they were before they came.
If you could change one issue of the world today, what would that issue? What would the change of the issue be?
I really see a problem in dissenting opinions, and what I mean by that is that we've learned that you are my enemy if you disagree with me, right? You know, and I think that separates us, and that's the more ideological point. Just knowing that just because we disagree doesn't mean we're enemies, and that even if we disagree and we can't even go forward, that violence doesn't have to ensue. You know, and I would like to get rid of the violence in the world, because that's what love dictates. I'm not sure if that's possible, but I would like that, because when you love someone, you seek a place of understanding, and I think that's imperative in our process of advancing our culture. Because culture is not like a island where, you know, it's something that encompasses everybody. We all must grow together, because as one section or one group evolves, what tends to happen is that everything around that evolves as well. So to make it a very verbose response to your question.
Going back to your point that the march actually starts in City Park and in the city, but as we've come to know, that a lot of gentrification has gone on in the city, and the neighborhoods have changed a lot. How do you think that affects the Marade?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that affects the Marade. You can't really focus on the outside sources of change. You just have to make sure that you have a good plan, that your vision is tight, that your mission is tight, and that you go out with love. And so I think gentrification definitely changes the nature. I think what the Marade can do is making sure that the history is not replaced. That is the main crux of gentrification, is that we want diversity. It's important, but we will not, our culture cannot, our history cannot be erased. That's the main crux of gentrification. You cannot replace the history before. So maybe the Marade can be a loud voice about the history of the struggles and the accomplishments of the people who came before us. And I don't know how we do that, if we're on bullhorns, if we passing out flyers, if we're doing forums and symposiums, creating businesses. These are all ways that we could do it. But honestly, the Marade, I feel, in order to address gentrification, we have to address our lack of resources. You know, because the reason gentrification happens is because we don't have the purchasing power. And so they come in and they purchase and then they replace. If we can surround our solutions around economics, it gives us a better footing to address gentrification.
So we're coming to an age where people under the age of 60 don't have a personal memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. What Dr. Cornel West says, it's the Santa Clausation of MLK, where he becomes a holiday, he becomes just a figure.
Right.
How do we change that, or how do we go about it so that young people are feeling more of a personal connection to him or to his legacy?
I don't think that's possible, to be honest with you. I've never met Dr. King Jr., but how I stay connected is listening to his speeches and his sermons. What we do in the spirit of Dr. King, because we will have our own fight. We will have our own struggles. We will have our own injustice. But we have to recall some of the measures and some of the solutions of Dr. King Jr. This is the way we connect to the past, because history has a funny way of repeating itself, you know, and I think that it's unfortunate that I will never be able to meet Dr. King Jr., but his spirit is very alive, because there is a fight currently. There's a struggle currently, right now, and this is what connects us to that injustice. Injustice, or the will for justice, is what connects us. We just have to keep reminding people and putting it in their face that this was a problem, this is a problem, and you know, and I think another way is for elders of our community to share those personal stories, to capture their voices via interviews, via video, via even voice capturing. And we share those stories, because we can hear from Dr. King Jr.'s voice, but the perspective of other people who actually witnessed some of the struggles, I think it's important, it's imperative. One thing that I like that we won't have the capability of doing, Steven Spielberg, what he did is he put his own money into asking the survivors of the Holocaust all of these questions, and then he made a hologram where people can interact and ask questions of the people who are survivors. So now that type of thing allows the stories to keep resonating, you know, and you to participate in history. Unfortunately, we're getting to the place where a lot of those leaders have lost from the civil rights movement, and I would like to capture those stories, because then we can do, you know, maybe not to that grand scheme, but maybe we can have, you know, interactive sessions where, or just a bunch of questions and stories and experiences of these people who actually were in the trenches, fighting injustice. These are a few ways, from my personal opinion, that we can connect to Dr. King Jr. and his messages and his methods. Yeah.
And so my final question to you is, what is the thing that you want people to get the most out of the Marade?
To be honest with you, is that we're in a perilous time, right? I think we get so inundated with negativity, we get so inundated with hate, and the work we have to do. Now it's important that we know that there is work, but we can't stop smiling, we can't stop living, and we can't stop enjoying life. And sometimes it just takes slowing down in fellowship to celebrate that we've made it this far, to celebrate, to give us the vigor to continue to march those very hard, arduous steps that come with fighting injustice. I just want us to celebrate and demonstrate. That is, going back full circle is the purpose why we Marade, is to celebrate and demonstrate.